Welcome back to Iron Rage, the show where John Romano and I vent our frustrations with you guys and the world. And today's topic is, will anabolic steroids ever be decriminalized? In other words, taken from that Control 3 drug status and made legal, almost the way marijuana is working right now in several states throughout the nation. To review this topic and give his very strong opinion, we have John Romano, live on the line here. John, you're a big proponent of legalizing all drugs, pretty much. Can steroids ever make it to that status?
Well, I think in order to, first of all, let's clarify, I'm not in favor of legalizing all drugs.
Which ones aren't you?
Just the ones I like.
I know, but which ones aren't you liking?
I think marijuana should be absolutely, completely legalized all over the country. When you look at the recent studies on the benefits of marijuana from all kinds of angles, I think the fact that it's a Schedule I drug, which puts it in the company of the worst as far as the DEA is concerned, is absolutely ridiculous, completely ludicrous. And actually, that's getting the attention of some members of Congress, Trey Gowdy being one of them, who was actually rallying for them to take another look at scheduling marijuana and moving it from Schedule I to at least Schedule III, which is, it's just part of how the wall is toppling as more and more states vote to legalize or decriminalize marijuana. You're going to see, a lot of these things having to change. Steroids were unfortunately used as a scapegoat for political gain, political purpose, because if you look at how steroids were criminalized and subsequently scheduled, you'll realize that this should never have been, ever, never. So if they're willing to look at marijuana, if they're willing to look at rescheduling marijuana, I think there's a very good argument to be made for looking at steroids again and talking about moving them off of Schedule 3.
Well, it's interesting because anabolic steroids are the only hormone that I know of that's a scheduled drug. Think about it. It almost sounds ridiculous when you look at steroids as a hormone as opposed to just saying it's a muscle building compound. It's a hormone. It's a hormone that, by and far naturally occurs in the body. Obviously, the anabolics are slightly tweaked, but they're analogs to the testosterone molecule that's naturally occurring. And they're literally a controlled substance. It almost sounds ridiculous when you try to think about, well, what if they made estrogen, which is what a woman takes, the pill, a controlled substance? People would laugh. They would think it was absolutely ludicrous, but yet, it's a steroidal hormone as well.
Well, that's the media's great job of vilifying steroids over the years. But you're absolutely right. There would be no difference between a woman using more estrogen and a man using more testosterone. You're using your own hormone. The egregious part of the Steroid Control Act of 1990 that put steroids in this category was that if you look at the rest of the drugs in Schedule 3, ketamine, Valium, other downers, steroids are the only drug in that category, and for that matter, in the two categories ahead of it that elicit zero euphoric effect on the brain. Absolutely none, zero. So you're talking about a drug that doesn't get you high, a drug that doesn't have tremendous downsides as originally reported, by the media. And you're talking about a naturally occurring hormone. How can you take a naturally occurring hormone that is vital to life and criminalize it?
Not only that, John, you can't OD on it. Boston Lloyd proved that many times over already. You cannot take enough steroids in one sitting where you're going to die from it. Whereas we've heard this argument before. You could take if you ate a whole bottle of vitamin C, you would die. It would probably eat a hole in your stomach and you would die. But you can't do that from steroids. You can do it from aspirin too. Take a whole bottle of aspirin or Tylenol, you're going to die. So there's no chance of acute overdose with it. So it's not like someone's going to get a hold of it and they're going to swallow it and they're going to die. Like a 12-year-old kid or something like that. So there's no emergent danger to this drug. So what exactly is it that makes it a controlled substance? What do you think should be defined as a controlled substance? There's a better question for you, John.
Indeed, because you got to look at it this way. Doctors have been prescribing steroids to sick people for 80 years. So obviously, the dangers associated with them are false. Now you can say, well, the doses. Well, I mean, look, you can take 1 cc of cypionate, 250 milligrams of cypionate a week, and get your testosterone levels up over 1,000. You know, how much more do you need?
Right, but I'm saying if you took 10 cc's of testosterone cypionate, you might get a little like flu-like symptoms for a couple days, but you're not going to die from it, you know?
No. So control. Well, when they look to schedule a substance in its severity, one of the first things they look at is abuse potential.
Right.
They don't want a bunch of people strung out on testosterone on the street, knocking over liquor stores, trying to rob enough money to buy some test. So they look at abuse potential. Now you've got to look at the abuse potential of the drug. When you look at the hormones themselves, they don't have an abuse potential. The lifestyle that breeds their use is an extreme lifestyle that may, incorporate some abuse potential, only in the sense that bodybuilders abuse everything, including food and water. So, you can't use that as an example, but it's for physiological dependency or a psychological dependency, either one. Steroids just don't fit the bill. They do not have an abuse potential. Now, during the scheduling hearings in 1990, they had one expert, some hack psychologist from LA, I think. I forgot his name at the moment. It'll come to me. Who was basically spoon-fed the testimony by Lundgren and Biden and testified to what they wanted to hear. But you had opposing him. That one guy opposing him, you had Chuck Yasales, who's one of the top steroid experts in the country, who was a professor at Penn State. You had representatives from the DEA, the American Medical Association, the Department of Health and Human Services, all of whom testified to Congress that scheduling steroids was not appropriate. It was not an appropriate drug to be scheduled. Yet, because of political pressure and political favors, and the one guy who would speak the language that Lundgren and Biden wanted to hear, steroids got railroaded through Congress, and this bill got signed by the former managing partner of the Texas Rangers, probably the most steroid-infested baseball team on the face of the earth at the time.
George Bush.
Right.
It is ludicrous when you look at it from the perspective that we're putting. But here's the question, John. Since it is scheduled now, what would it take to decriminalize steroids? Is there really enough of a grassroots effort like there is with marijuana to actually get states to start saying, hey, you know what? We don't care about this stuff. We're going to decriminalize it. Well,
it should, and I'll tell you why. We just kind of, as bodybuilders and in our bodybuilding / sports community, it's a given. We talk about using steroids like we talk about brushing our teeth. It's just the fact that you're going to go to prison for 5 years if you get caught with them pays no mind at all to anybody who's discussing this topic. It's just kind of one of those things you got to wiggle around. It's like, I want to smoke weed. That's illegal too. So you're dealing with a preposterous number of people who are breaking the law. A pretty serious law, if you look at the penalties associated with it, to do what they want to do. So, I mean, it's going to take a grassroots assemblage of, I think, participants in the use of steroids, and I think, I think the biggest and most diverse faction would be, aging gentlemen who are, over 40. Want to get their test levels back up. I think that's the broad stroke across America of potential, benefits to people. And I think, the AMA and the Department of Health and Human Services needs to look at this, and we need an intelligent, sane congressman like Trey Gowdy, who's doing the same thing for marijuana, to look at steroids and say, wow, this law was pushed through Congress like a bulldozer pushing over a tree stump. Something's fishy there. Let's look at all of the testimony in that report and look at what validity it has to this day. And you'll see there's none of the health damage that that quote expert said would happen. It never happened. There's not a long line of dead athletes that succumbed to steroid use, but millions of them are using them. So there's got to be some break in the cloud that the common sense has got to come through and say millions, and I mean millions, because in 1983, Chuck Usalis estimated, 93, Chuck Usalis estimated that 1.2 million people were using steroids. Add to that now the advent of the internet, the growth in population, the growth in popularity of steroid drugs among athletes, and that number has got to be 10 times that now.
I agree.
So you have 10 million people roughly in a country of 330 million willingly breaking a federal and state felony to use these drugs for their own private personal benefit, not hurting anybody, not getting high, not doing anything bad. And the other thing is, you got to look at the dangers. When we have the recent deaths in our community, the deaths that we've experienced over the course of our history together in this sport, they're not only they're very few, but it's not the drugs themselves. The steroids did not kill anybody, whether they had heart disease, whether it was congenital, or from eating 20 chicken breasts a day, or keeping their bad cholesterol level elevated, or not checking their blood pressure. The lifestyle is what kills them. It's not the steroids. So you've got to look at how dangerous these things really are, what the abuse potential really is, and how many people are really using them in spite of the law. And if you can look at these things and come to some sane view of these issues, you could probably put this back on the table in Congress and say, look, we should really look at this again, because clearly this law is not only applicable, but it's failed miserably. We haven't caught any high-profile athletes, which is what the law was designed to do. So failed law, failed policy, failed results. It's time to take a look at it.
I think that the rational way to do it would be, hey, look, it's legal to use them. Go to your doctor, go to a doctor, because I'm sure plenty of hormone clinics will pop up if they became legal. You go in there, you tell them what you want, you buy it legally with a prescription, they do your blood work, and everything's great. I'm not against putting guys in jail who sell the stuff illegally or illicitly, but if you have a legalization of the stuff where you can go get it legally, I think most guys would go to a clinic and buy it legally because they know what they're getting would be good, and would be good quality, and would be clean, and would be what it's supposed to be. It could be, and the government could probably make a lot of money from taxing that stuff if they want.
The law forces the underground market, Dave.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do not stem the demand, you are never going to curtail the supply. Never,
right.
Ever. So if you have 10 million people banging down the door to get their hands on steroids, and they can't get them legitimately from a doctor, where else are they going to go? Right. They're going to go underground like everybody else goes for everything else they want to get, right, that the government says they're not allowed to have. So the idea that of the low quality underground lab would disappear overnight.
Yep.
And just go to the doctor and say, "Doc, I'm going to do 500 mgs a sip a week to see a trend every other day and some Deca." Here's your script. Here's your blood work. Come back in 10 weeks. Let me check it again. I wish the best for you.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way it is.
It's like going to a plastic surgeon and saying, look, I want double D boobs. All right, great. Come back Tuesday. We'll fucking put them into your chest. It's really the same thing. Let me ask you this question.
No, it's not the same
What?
thing. That is an invasive procedure under general anesthesia that has a tremendous amount of adverse events reported, both from the anesthesia and the procedure. Right. So if you put them side by side, getting double D boobs for a woman is far more dangerous and suspect than an athlete using testosterone to be a better athlete. Yeah. Not comparable at all.
You might be right there. Let me ask you this question. If you live in South Carolina now, if South Carolina made marijuana completely legal like they have it in Colorado, would you buy it from a dealer or would you go into a store and buy it?
A store? Are you kidding? You get so much more variety. You can buy gummies, you can buy cookies, you can buy brownies, you can buy chocolate, you can buy, different brands, filters, roller. I mean, you got it. The store is so much. Look, nobody wants to meet some guy in a parking lot to buy something illegal. Nobody wants to do that. If you have a choice of buying something out of the trunk of somebody's car in a dark parking lot, or go into a nice little, dispensary, have a seat, smoke a bowl and a bong, test out what it's going to take and decide whether you want stevia or indica or which cannabis cup winner you'd like to take home. And that's it. See you later. Here's your money. Have a nice day.
Right.
That's what I want to do.
What's your favorite form of marijuana? Is it you like foods or smoking or they vape it now? What's your favorite way to do it?
I'm old school. I like to smoke it, but I only use a very tiny amount. And so, I'm talking, one little bong hit is all I need. I like eating it too, but it's a completely different, totally different effect. You need like the entire day.
Oh, why? It lasts longer?
Oh my God! 8 hours. You're just, you feel like molasses on a cold. You just kind of ooze into the world. It's great. It's a wonderful feeling.
Now, wouldn't it be great though if you could just go into a pharmacy? Yeah, I'll admit, I did in 1991. I went to Barcelona and I went to pharmacies there, and we bought stuff and we mailed it back to ourselves, because that was when the Steroid Control Act came about, and there was a lot of counterfeits in the U.S.
Right.
There was nothing better. There was not a better feeling than going into that pharmacy and looking at all the things on the shelves and saying, "I'll take one of that, one of those, and I knew everything was in a box with a pamphlet, and they were cheap because they were selling them for real prices, not street prices. And I can't even imagine what it would be like in a pharmacy here in the U.S. if they ever did that. But it could happen. My question is, John, why wouldn't Arnold get behind this? This seems like something that he could certainly build up a grassroots thing for, where he could say, look, I took these things back in the day when they were legal. I'm fine. I'm living. Look how good I look. I'm an older guy. I'm in my 70s. I feel good. I still take replacement if he does. I'm assuming he probably does.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with this stuff. Let's get this off the books. This is ridiculous. We're wasting time with law enforcement and trying people and spending millions of dollars on what? On something that's a load of crap.
You've got to somebody like Arnold would be the guy to ask the question, what is wrong with being bigger, stronger, and faster? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with being more youthful, more vital, and more virile? What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And that's the question you have to answer, because it's not the steroids, it's the effect. The Congress criminalized steroids because of their effect, because it made football players stronger, because poor little Joe Biden was at a disadvantage in his little natural twiggy self when he was out there on the football field, because he was going to get run over. Dan Lundgren's son supposedly was going to play ball at Notre Dame. You don't want to, have to get jacked in order to do it. The pussy way out of this is not what America needs. We need real men out there, and if I think a guy like Arnold would be great to question, the girly man phenomena that's running across America right now. I mean, it's just disgusting when you see what the media is putting up there as examples of what a male is today.
Right.
Even that's questionable, because they got a third category now.
They have more than a third category, I think.
Look, to each his own. You want to, have the plumbing and dress like a girl, do whatever you want. Go do it. Have fun, But just don't bring it anywhere where I got to deal with it. And at the same time, don't promote the idea that you can use hormones to affect your gender specificity, but I can't use them to be a better athlete or cheat father time or look good in my old age. So you've got to put a lid on all of this and call this what it is and do something sane about it, common sense.
Do you think it goes back to what you said, the pussification of American men? They're trying to make us, like more feminine and calm everyone down and almost like make us like these automatons in a society where no one will have any aggression or any question anything or have any passion or anything. It seems like we're just getting dumb down. The phones alone. I mean, I got the phone here. I can't get it out of my face. I mean, we're like drones already from these things. I mean, now take away all the aggression and the hormonal aspect of us, and then we're basically all robots walking around.
Yep, pretty much. Or, teenage millennials.
Well, we'll have to see whether anything ever happens like this. I don't know. I think Arnold's the man to make it happen. I don't know if that's an agenda that he's willing to promote, but I think that he can get behind this and talk some sanity into some of these congressmen and get this thing off the books. When I see people going to jail for 5 years for steroid offenses, it saddens me because it should never happen. It really is terrible. But once again, we live in a society, it's very hard to institute change, but I think Arnold could be that change. And I challenge you, Arnold, to go out there and really talk some sense into these people. For now, though, I'm John Romano. I'm not John Romano today. John is John Romano. I'm Dave Palumbo for another episode of Iron Rage.